we make a step, take a little step, actually a big step in the direction of answering the question, well, this is all interesting about animals, but what about us, you know? So remember, in whatever you do, always ask, why is this important to me? So, why is this well, depends on your interests. If you're interested in predicting speeds at the Olympics, you can predict speeds at the Olympics. You can obviously erase the formula. You can say, tell me the size of the sprinter, and if that person is tall, then he has an advantage. It's the same in swimming. In swimming, even though the swimmer is horizontal, the swimmer, here's the surface of the water, and the swimmer is oscillating, you say basculating, that's the French word for it, doing this. And a taller person lifts his head and shoulders higher above the water. Get it? So, athlete size has the same effect on speed regardless of medium. And that's how you predict that the fastest swimmers should continue to come from, the fastest swimming from athletes who are bigger. And you can take this little hint all the way to, ending all sorts of controversies about competitive sports. But why is this important to all of us who walk on Earth? And, let's take a look. I had a one-scale model of the moving animal, body mass and length scale, and I drew it as a cube or as a sphere. I can also draw it as a stick of body length L, and concentrate the entire mass at this point. So that drawing is equivalent. I know, of course, I wrote it many times, this M is density times L cubed. But I draw it this way to begin questioning the actual rhythm of this object as it moves forward. I don't know whether you paid, the story began with the fact that the so-called cruising flight at constant altitude, that any bird, is in fact a zigzag motion, okay? If somebody, attaches a light bulb to your head and lights it and then makes you walk with the light on a very, very dark street, that light on the film that your friend Joker will make of you will be doing this, you see, because the stick falls forward. You don't fall all the way to the ground. You don't, because you have not one stick, you have two. You have two legs. But the fact is that that is what happens. That the center of mass of the body is falling forward. And then the story continues. From a greater altitude, the falling forward, the velocity is bigger. But during this fall, the horizontal velocity component decreases. It decreases all the way to zero. When you hit the ground, you're not going forward anymore. The fastest fall forward happens when you are close to the vertical. And we'll call this angle theta. For the, in this regime, the speed forward that you acquire is the greatest. You have this experience when you're riding on a Ferris wheel. On a Ferris wheel, your speed, obviously, in the direction of rotation, is greatest when you're at the, say, the north pole of that circle, and then 0 here, then it becomes negative at the south pole. But you're not interested in dealing with the subterranean world. And what next? In the case of the person, this is you. What next is not a disaster, because you have a second leg that steps here, except that the second leg has to be bent at the knee because the distance to the ground is shorter. And the knee is equipped with muscles that extend the femur and the tibia in order to lift the body to the altitude from which it fell. So if this is leg 1, and leg 1 is here, then the end of the so-called cycle is when leg 2 does what leg 1 did. Okay, so this is leg 2 arriving here. I draw only the trajectory of the top. The trajectory of the top was like this. So if this is leg 1, this is leg 2, leg 1 again, and so on. Okay? It's a little bit tough to visualize this, meaning, let's call it rectilinear motion due to stepwise wisdom of trying to stick to the vertical. Incidentally, this is why walking is tricky business. People fall, especially as they become old, or they trip and fall at all ages, because people walking or even standing up are inverted versions of the pendulum that Jack mentioned a few minutes ago. And that's the sort of act that you see at the circus, the holding the ball at the top of a stick. Yes?
So it would make sense from this that like the further the angle goes down, the sort of like more you accelerate, and that kind of makes sense because sprinters lean over a lot in the beginning. I'm wondering if you have any insight as to why like sprinters start the race like taking a series of steps while they're pretty much diagonal, but towards the end of the race they're all vertical.
The sprinter starts that way in order to like any animal, to prevent itself from hitting the ground. So the survival of the sprinter out of the starting blocks depends on that person's ability to avoid hitting the ground with his face. And that is performed or achieved by accelerating out of the starting blocks so that the body is left behind, meaning it's lifted or raised due to the effect of legs that are running faster than the body. But once that takes only a few steps. Once the running position is reached, then it's all this kind of repetitive cycle. men who win races today make only 40 of these steps to the finish line, 100 meters. 100 meters. I'm talking about the Usain Bolt types, 40 steps. So male, 40 steps. Women, 50 steps. But you know why more steps? Because women are, even the fastest, are shorter than the fastest men. You get this, used to be QED, quod erat demonstrandum. Now it's spelled duh, you've read that expression. It's pretty obvious if you know these scaling discoveries. Let's see now. But there is a way to visualize this particular bit of mechanics. I don't know how many of you, when you're really tiny, crawled inside an empty cylinder. Where I come from, that was an empty wine barrel. And here's the on the ground. And you walk inside this rolling object. You think you're walking. You do this motion. But because the cylinder is rotating, you are always standing up as you walk. And moving is the assembly, meaning the cylinder. You never did this? No, you did? Yeah.
It was a sphere, though.
Huh?
It was a sphere, though.
Okay, there you go. With that, you can expand the joke in all directions. Yes. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Look at this. You in that circle, you're a wheel, you say. Huh, great idea. Let me draw the wheel. And you again. So, walking is in fact this motion, except that if the camera moves with the rotating wine barrel, the camera will see you taking one step after another, meaning that if this is 1 and this is 2, then would be 1 again and 2 again. So bipedal, in this case, bipedal walking is a natural wheel with only 2 spokes. That is the lightest wheel. The history of the wheel is, the origin of it is still being debated. There is no record of it, except that it appeared about 10,000 years ago. Some people say it came from China, but there's no record except the record of the success of the contrivance. What is evident, the wheelbarrow is from China. That is a little vehicle for carrying material supported by one wheel at the front end. Okay. Anyway, so the wheel is operates on this principle, but now that's the view from today. Artifacts that are being discovered, you've seen them drawn on the chariots of antiquity. The oldest wheels, and the oldest that you see in the bas reliefs and say Persian, architecture, Babylon, these places, those wheels were solid. So solid wheel on an axle. And then this technology evolved in the direction of lighter and lighter. You see in warfare, say time of Renaissance, those times, the wheels, and by the way, wheel making became a technology very, very important, with a hub and then wooden spokes. What happened from antiquity to medieval times? The wheel became lighter. Pay attention, you'll see this in drawings, but especially in movies. Time of Napoleon, these wheels had become even lighter because the spokes were thinner and more numerous. And so lighter. What would be the lightest wheel that you've seen on display today? You see it sometimes in these bicycles that run on the velodrome, for speed at the Olympics. They have how many spokes? You don't pay attention. Hey, this is planet Earth. They have 3 spokes. And that is because these people in sports are plagiarists. The wheel makers who came up with this idea were who? Where did you see this drawing? The logo of Daimler-Benz is this. See that? So the idea, look, there's a time arrow here in the direction of lighter. Obviously, you have to have the technology that makes the spokes. The spokes at the Olympics on the bicycle are aerodynamic in cross-section, and they got these materials today, titanium, I don't know what, that did not exist just recently. But that is not the point. The point is that the drawing speaks of lighter and lighter. Why? Because the mover is not into wasting effort. What would be the wheel that's even lighter? Thank you. It's the one with 2 spokes, which teaches what lesson? Don't you report me to the authorities. That no, the wheel was not invented in China. It was invented in nature. See, this one. With the, and people say that the wheel, the human wheel, talk about the one from antiquity has an axle. Sure, the joints in the pelvis are even more evolved than the axle of the wheel, because the axle of the wheel permits rotation in one plane, movement in one plane. The joints in the pelvis allow the femur to go in all directions. So the so-called ball joint is a design with much greater freedom than the wheel on an axle. And let's see, now I want to tell you something else before I get into ball joints. Maybe it will occur to me as I pack things up. Oh yeah. So if nature invented the wheel, what about the bicycle? The quadruped Here's the quadruped. You can draw your own version. Maybe this is a piglet, okay? It's the same story with a wheel here. And another one rotating here. Quadrupedal motion is the same idea of, incidentally, the wheel of nature has a huge advantage because of this bending knee of rolling on terrain that's significantly uneven, unlike any of the wheels of technology. And when you look at these movies with, Star Wars and whatever, but also movies of vehicles on Mars, they have wheels that are designed for uneven terrain. Well, the best wheel for that would be the robot with flexing legs.